Hello, my name is Rory MacDonald. I'm a postdoctoral research associate at Liverpool John Moores University, and I'm also co-convener of the BERA Special Interest Group for STEAM Educational Research. I'm going to share some reflections on this provocation of what does STEAM education signify to me as an educator and educational researcher, leading up to our Meaning and Value of STEAM BERA event. So if I'm going to respond to this idea and share what STEAM signifies to me, I think it's important to very quickly situate myself in relation to that. So I'm a postdoc research associate. I'm an early career researcher with, I think, an evolving understanding of what STEAM is and how it's conceived of and my own personal definition of what makes STEAM STEAM. I have a background in psychology. My undergraduate and early research experience was in psychology. And I think that shaped my view of how STEAM is conceived of. But certainly my PhD has as well. In my PhD examined STEM as a subject and the integration and connection between STEM subjects. And it took quite a critical perspective on that. It questioned whether we can generalize science to engineering, for example, what sort of the interplay and dependence we can have on STEM as a concept. But having said that I can be critical of it, I do see the value of these STEM and STEAM integrative approaches if we approach them very mindfully and carefully. I think if I'm going to share what STEAM signifies to me, I think it's important to share how I conceptualize it and define it. I think it's fair to say there's a range of definitions out there for STEAM. Certainly there's a spectrum of different framings. We have a very functional definition on one side of this spectrum where it's STEAM is just STEM, which exists, and we add arts to it. So it's additive. We just add arts and artistic practices into an existing thing called STEM. Then we have slightly more nuanced definitions that look at the practices and knowledge of arts and look at arts more fully and look at the dimensionality of what happens when you bring those together, bring that together with science, technology, engineering and maths. And then further down we have even more perhaps radical definitions of STEAM that looks at the arts as this transformative space, this transformative power that challenges and changes what science, technology, engineering and maths are. So it's almost STEAM as alchemy that changes and transforms STEM. And I think looking at these definitions, it really signifies to me that STEAM is an evolving concept, it's an evolving body of knowledge. I come back to my roots in psychology and look at different philosophies around this, and I think structuralism and gestaltism come across in these definitions, structuralism being a very atomic components-based view of human psychology, looking at it, if you add this and add this and add this together, you get human and you get human mind, compared with gestaltism, which says that we are greater than the sum of our individual parts. And I think we can see that reflected in these definitions, where STEM plus arts is very structural, it's just adding another component, or we have arts as this transformative power, where it adds more than simply the sum of the individual parts that are added together into it. The thing is, though, that arts are always present in any framing of STEAM. And in fact, if you take arts out of this dynamic, it's just STEM, and it's just STEM integration. So I think in defining and conceiving and understanding what STEAM signifies to me, I think it's important to recognise this pivotal central role of arts within this dynamic and recognise that arts is transformational in this concept. If we take arts out, it's simply STEM integration. I think that brings an opportunity as well, an opportunity for us to actually reflect and compare these two approaches to better understand what that magic ingredient of arts does and to better understand what STEAM therefore signifies. So we can look at STEM integration as defined by Moore as an effort to combine some or all of STEM based on connections between subjects and real-world problems. That real-world problems is a really important part of that definition because it frames STEM integration as this transformative process based around real-world context. But we can contrast that with STEAM, and we can highlight a distinction here in that arts is that central pivotal place within STEAM approaches that empowers that transdisciplinary change. That actually arts is that focus that pulls together and allows science and technology and engineering and maths and arts to share its space. I think that contrasts it with STEM integration. If we're looking at what a real-world context could do in learning and what arts-based learning can do in learning, quite radically different. Arts much more nuanced potentially, and bringing a greater body of practice and knowledge and behaviours and so forth than necessarily STEM. So I think it signifies that STEAM can be much grander, much more diverse and nuanced than necessarily STEM-based approaches in its transdisciplinary nature, certainly. I think it also shows us, or it gives us an opportunity to compare STEM integration and STEAM integration and see, almost lift the hood and see the mechanics of it all. So STEM integration literature spotlights engineering as the integrator, that engineering is often used very, very pivotally in pedagogy for STEM integration. Engineering is inherently integrative. It uses scientific knowledge, it uses technical competency and mathematical reasoning, and it does that wrapped around creativity and innovation. The problem with that, though, is that in the UK, we don't have a very strong foundation of engineering learning. Parents and teachers will often report a lack of knowledge and confidence in engineering. There are low levels of engineering identity and self-efficacy amongst learners, and there's often very strong gendered effects and effects of social background on engineering and almost engineering readiness and capacity to engage with engineering. So we can contrast that with STEAM, where it's an arts-based focus, where it's an arts-based space that pulls together these subjects, that actually in a UK framing, STEAM might signify a much more equitable approach to STEM, approach to integration, an approach to learning in STEM subjects and arts. That actually we can get around those boundaries of low readiness for engineering or low capacity to engage with engineering by drawing on arts instead, by drawing on STEAM instead. And I think it's a touch ironic that engineering is a field that values utility and effectiveness, but it actually might be fluffy arts that is the more effective and pedagogical approach to integration. But there needs to be a lot more research into this and examination of and comparison of different practical approaches. But it signifies a great utility to STEAM, I believe. So just to wrap up very quickly, what does STEAM signify to me? I think STEAM is a really broad church with varying definitions. I think we have to be quite mindfully pragmatic that these are, it's a nurturing, evolving concept. We're not there with a single definition yet. It might not be possible to have a single definition and concept of STEAM. But that signifies something. That signifies its potential and its flexibility and its nuance. I also personally do like this definition, this framing that views it as transformative, that it is greater than the sum of its parts, and that I think itself signifies the potency of this concept. Also, I feel now as I'm developing this understanding and appreciation for STEAM, it's creeping its way into my practice in education. When my research group, the research group I belong to, works with schools, I can see these arts-based approaches creeping into ways of working and interacting with young people, but also in research as well, in terms of research methods and drawing on arts-inspired inquiries and these more qualitative methods to complement research inquiry. So I think STEAM signifies a very potent, transformative perspective and a lens in education. And I'd be very, very eager to hear your thoughts on that. And thank you for listening to my reflections on this question of what